Colorado Avalanche are gearing up for what they hope is another run at the Stanley Cup. But did they do enough this offseason, and will the pieces come together? Zach Pearson of Locked On Avalanche is here to talk about that and more next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. It is my pleasure to welcome to the show for the first time the new co-host of Locked On Avalanche, Zach Pearson. And Zach, it's been an interesting offseason. The Avalanche seems to me trying to get some depth pieces to sort of get that lineup to go on a longer playoff run. How would you grade the offseason overall?
I'd give it a solid B. I think there's probably some more that the Avs could have done, but I really like that recent signing of Victor Olofsson to shore up that third line. And once I'm blanking on his name, Logan O'Connor comes back after his injury recovery, I really think the Avs depth is not going to be too much of an issue, barring other injuries coming in. So not the best offseason, but I think they did enough to address the needs they had.
And with training camp coming up very, very soon, what is your biggest concern about this team right now?
Ooh, that's a great question. As much as I said, I think the depth's not as big of a deal. I think the depth is easily the biggest concern. I mean, we're still a pretty top-heavy team over here in Colorado. Those top two lines, Brock Nelson, I'm hoping will be everything that we expect him to be with that contract. That's a little bit of a concern, but not as much. I really hope that it's not a same season where it's shut down the top line and you shut down the Avalanche. I really am hopeful that the bottom six will come through as much as I think they're capable of doing. But that is probably my biggest concern spot, I think, at the moment.
Are there any prospects out there who you think are ready to step in and maybe make a mark this year?
I really don't think so, unfortunately. The Avs prospect pool is not, I don't think, as NHL ready as some other prospect pools across the NHL. They've got some guys that I think will end up coming up and being able to make a little bit of an impact, specifically looking at Ilya Nabokov. But their depth, their prospect depth is just not there right now. But that's a testament, I think, to ownership and to Joe Sakic and Chris MacFarland going, you know what, we're all in right now. Prospects aren't going to be the focus while you're all in to win the cup in this window that they're in.
Gabriel Landeskog came back, played a little bit in the playoffs last year, but missed a lot of time. A lot of people doubted whether he'd ever play again. Do you think he's ready for an 82-game grind plus playoffs? Or do you think that the Avalanche will try to pace him at all?
So I got the privilege of watching his first two games back in the AHL with the Eagles in person. And watching him hit the ice, he did everything, I think, properly, granted at a lower level in the AHL. Then he came back for the playoffs and had some really good games with the Avs against the Stars, even though we didn't win that series. I really think right now only time will tell. My impression is he feels ready to go, right? He is set for an 82-game season. He doesn't plan to miss a second of ice time that is available to him. That being said, it'll really be interesting to see how that plays out because 3 years is a long time to spend away from the NHL and to just jump right back into it full blown. And he plans to play in the Olympics. I think he believes he's ready. And honestly, I really feel like when you're that level of athlete, a lot of that has to be mental, right? So his mindset, I think, is going to lend to him doing really well this year.
Talk to me about the goaltending. How confident are you that the goaltending will not be an issue this year?
I am confident. I have been a Mackenzie Blackwood fan for a while. I do a dynasty fantasy hockey league, and Blackwood has been my goaltender for as long as I can remember being a part of this league. I think he's going to do excellent. His underlying numbers are always really good. There's a reason that the NHL recently put him and Wedgwood in the top. I think they were 5th or 6th overall in tandems. I don't have that list up right now, but I really do believe the front office did a great job of picking up a goaltending tandem that is going to backstop this Avalanche to a very solid season and to a much hotter start this year. So they don't have as much of a rough beginning to the season as they did last year, which will help them down the stretch and going into the playoffs.
A lot of questions about the long-term situation with Marty Necas, the contract. How do you see this playing out? What are the Avs looking to do here?
I've actually talked about this with Chris on the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and him and I think, are on a pretty similar page right here. I think that Marty Necas gets a contract before December. I think around Thanksgiving is about as long as this thing goes. I think the front office believes in him. I think he is a talented enough player to warrant that contract, and I think it gets done pretty quick. If anything hangs it up past that, I don't know that he stays on the team. I think if it passes December and there's no contract in place, it's going to be a Mikko style situation, which honestly I would put as a bit of a failure on the front office, and I think a lot of Avs fans would too. But I don't see it coming to that. I really do think Marty's a great player. The front office believes in him. The team believes in him. You wouldn't have gone and traded Mikko Rantanen for Necas if you didn't think he was going to do what he needs to do for the team, right? So I think that contract gets done. I think it's probably, a lot of people will see as an overpay, but time will tell exactly what it is, and he's going to be here for at least a handful more years.
When you say an overpay, what number do you roughly think this is going to?
That is really tough, right? Because you also have Makar's extension coming up, and you're going to have to make sure that you stay cap compliant, excuse me. I think he probably gets in that Nelson range, maybe even a little bit higher, maybe pushing the 8 million mark. But again, I don't know exactly what that's going to come out to be. I do know that if it hits up in that Nelson / above Nelson range, that a lot of Avs fans are going to immediately say overpay, just like they did with Nelson. But I think there's a lot of potential to Necas's game, and I think he's going to show exactly what he's capable of coming up over this next season to warrant what that payment's going to be.
The Avalanche have a potentially unusual situation on defense. They have 4 good right shot defensemen. The rest of the league is eager to find. They're hard to find right shot defensemen. How do you see this playing out? Who could play on the offside? And also, is it possible that a trade happens because of the supply and demand for right shot defensemen?
It's definitely possible a trade happens. However, honestly, on the defense, the number one guy I see being traded is one of the left shot defensemen in Sam Girard. I don't know that the Avs front office would really entertain without a really good return for anybody other than Sam Girard. I guess you could potentially look at Sam Malinsky being moved, but Burns on a 1-year deal. They just extended Manson for another 2 years after this year, so I don't see him really being moved. And obviously, unless there's some sort of complete implosion in the front office and they lose their minds, you're not moving Taze or Makar. So I really think that the only one I'd see traded is Girard, and being a left-handed defenseman, I don't know why that would be, like, as you were saying, with the right-handed defenseman being ones to potentially move. I don't know who you get back, or who wants to be interested in that. So I'm not sure I see a trade on defense, honestly. I think they're pretty well set where they're at, and the Avs are going to be, I think, a really good defensive team once again, as they have been for a handful of years.
What about Jack Drury? He's scheduled to be the 3C. How confident are you in his ability to fill that spot?
I'm feeling pretty good with Drury. I was pretty impressed with him last season. I think he's shown enough flashes of being a very solid centerman for those bottom 6 roles. And from what I've seen of training camp and everything so far this year, rather just practice skates and everything, he's shown a little bit more offensiveness. He's got a bit of a scoring touch that I think is going to translate well into this upcoming season. Obviously, live games are going to be a lot different of a situation, so we'll see what exactly that looks like after they hit the ice against actual opponents. And that's where that bottom depth for the forwards concern kind of comes into play, right? But I think Jack Drury is going to show that he's more than worth that contract that he's got for this upcoming year. I actually am very hopeful for him. I think that's going to be a solid depth player. And once Logan O'Connor comes back, I think he looks even better, just because he'll have a little bit less of that kind of responsibility to shoulder.
All right, Zach, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Well, you can check us out. The Locked On Avalanche podcast on Twitter. X is at LOPN_avs. You can also follow us on Instagram at Locked On Avalanche. You can find me at Xavier Superfly on all of the social media platforms. And of course, always find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast. Just search Locked On Avalanche and come give us a listen every day.
All right, Zach, thanks so much and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is back, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Do you like player props? How about building a same-game parlay to try to win even more money? Or you could jump in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, visit FanDuel.com to download the app. Check it out today.